Alright, what's going on, guys? This is your boy Carter J. I want to do something a little different in this video. I want to take you guys back to the past. The name of this video is some of boxing's greatest undefeated battles. And in boxing, my favorite kind of fight is where both fighters are undefeated, because it makes the fight more exciting. And in boxing, when you lose, that loss stays on your record forever. So you cannot never get it back. Once it's there forever until you retire. So that's why I feel when two undefeated fighters get in the ring and fight each other, one of those fighters is going to lose the so-called O, which holds a lot of significance in a boxer. And that's why I feel that undefeated battles are my favorite kind of fights in boxing. I'm gonna run you guys through some of boxing's best undefeated fights. I'm not gonna spend too much time on each fight, because if I did that, I'll be here forever. But the first fight I want to start with was the fight that took place between Joe Frazier and George Foreman. This fight took place January 22nd, 1973. This fight was nicknamed the Sunshine Showdown, and it took place in Kingston, Jamaica. This was one of the most defining fights in the 1970s, as Joe Frazier was the #1 challenger for George Foreman's title back in that time. He was also the undisputed world heavyweight champion. And once this fight had begun, Joe Frazier was knocked down a total of 6 times within 2 rounds by George Foreman. Like I said, this was, I feel, one of the best defining fights in the 1970s, along with many other fights. Alright, next fight I would like to talk about is the fight that took place between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. This fight took place on March 8th, 1971 in Madison Square Garden, where Joe Frazier would give Muhammad Ali his first loss by unanimous decision. This was a very defining fight also in the 70s, because this fight led to a huge trilogy, one of the best trilogies in boxing history. In this fight, Frazier beat Ali by unanimous decision. Muhammad Ali would later go on to beat Joe Frazier in a rematch in 1974 by unanimous decision. And then he would later go on to beat Joe Frazier in their third and final fight in Manila, Philippines, also known as the Thrilla in Manila. Next fight I want to talk about is the fight that took place between Larry Holmes and Gerry Cooney, Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. Going into this fight, Gerry Cooney was a #1 contender. This fight led up to many racial overtones, and Larry Holmes had knocked down Gerry Cooney in the 2nd round, where Gerry Cooney would get back up, only to make it to round 13, where Cooney's trainer would stop the fight. There was a lot of low blows going into this fight. After this fight, the two fighters gained mutual respect for each other, and they still remain to this day very close friends. Few hardcore boxing fans consider Larry Holmes to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. Next fight I want to talk about is Larry Holmes versus Olympic gold medalist Michael Spinks. This fight took place on September 21st, 1985 at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Ring Magazine would call this the upset of the year in that year, 1985, where Larry Holmes lost his IBA heavyweight title by unanimous decision to Michael Spinks. Larry Holmes was on the verge to surpass Rocky Marciano's record of 49-0. Next fight I would like to talk about is Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks. This fight took place on June 27, 1988 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. At this time, Mike Tyson held the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles, while Michael Spinks held the Ring Magazine belt and was considered a lineal champion. This fight was at this time was the richest prize fight in boxing history. At the time, Tyson earned nearly $20 million. Michael Spinks earned $13.5 million. Mike Tyson knocked out Michael Spinks in this fight in 91 seconds. To this day, Michael Spinks' loss only comes from Mike Tyson, and it was also the very first time Michael Spinks got knocked down in his whole entire career in this fight. Alright, next fight I would like to talk about is Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. This fight took place on September 18th, 1999 in the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada. This was a fight that the fans was clamoring for, and they finally had gotten it. It was to unify the WBC and IBF welterweight titles. It was the so-called last super fight of the 20th century, where Trinidad won by a majority decision, where many feel that Oscar De La Hoya had won majority of the fight. This fight set the record for the largest non-heavyweight record in boxing history until it was met by Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather in 2007, where this day that fight still holds the record for the highest non-heavyweight draw in boxing history. Fans wanted a rematch for this fight, but the rematch fell through and it never happened. Next fight I would like to talk about is Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus Meldrick Taylor, known for the fight of the decade for the 1990s. Ring Magazine had named this fight Fight of the Year for 1990. It was to unify the WBC and the IBF junior welterweight titles. Coming into this fight, Chavez Sr. was 68-0, with 55 of those wins coming by way of knockout. The fight was billed as thunder versus lightning because of Chavez's power versus Meldrick Taylor's hand speed. Chavez won this fight by 12th round via TKO, even though Meldrick Taylor had got up on the referee's count. At that time, Chavez held one of the longest undefeated streaks in boxing history in over 80 years. It is one of the most controversial fights in boxing history and is still highly talked about until this day. Next fight I would like to talk about is the fight between Floyd Mayweather and Diego Corrales. This fight took place on January 20th, 2001 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Going into this fight, both fighters had never been knocked down in their career. Diego Corrales was ranked number 1 super featherweight and number 5 pound for pound. Floyd Mayweather was ranked the number 2 super featherweight and number 7 pound for pound. Both fighters were the same age, 23 years old, and at this time many considered Diego Corrales to be Floyd Mayweather's most dangerous opponent. Floyd Mayweather came into this fight as a huge underdog, and not only did he knock down Diego Corrales for the first time in his career, he knocked down Diego Corrales 5 times in that fight. This was one of Floyd Mayweather's most defining fights in his whole entire career. Next fight I'd like to talk about is the fight between Vernon Forrest and Shane Mosley. This fight took place on January 26, 2001 in Madison Square Garden. At this time, many considered Shane Mosley to be the best welterweight at that time and was a huge favorite over Vernon Forrest, who was an Olympic silver medalist. Vernon Forrest would beat Shane Mosley by unanimous decision, and they would later rematch in 2002. The 2 wins over Mosley earned Vernon Forrest by Ring Magazine the Fighter of the Year for 2002. Next fight I'd like to talk about is the fight between Timothy Bradley and Devon Alexander. This fight took place on January 29, 2011 at the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. This was a unification matchup to unify the WBC and WBO junior welterweight titles. Bradley won by technical decision. At the 10th round, Bradley gave Alexander a cut over his right eye with an unintentional headbutt, which led to Devon Alexander not being able to continue into the fight. Still to this day, Timothy Bradley is still undefeated and is the current WBO welterweight champion. And still to this day, Devon Alexander is one of the top-ranked welterweights, and his only loss still comes to Timothy Bradley. Next fight I'd like to talk about is the fight between Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Ricky Hatton. This fight took place on December 8, 2007 at the MGM Grand. At this time, previous in that year, Floyd Mayweather Jr. had beat Oscar De La Hoya, in which after that fight, Floyd Mayweather Jr. had announced his retirement. And after Ricky Hatton had a big win in his career, he called out Floyd Mayweather Jr. where Mayweather had came out of a small retirement to defend his title against Ricky Hatton. Floyd Mayweather Jr. would beat Ricky Hatton by knockout in the 10th round, where Mayweather would go into retirement and would come back in 2009 against Juan Manuel Marquez. Next fight I'd like to talk about is the fight between Brandon Rios and Mike Alvarado. This fight took place on October 13, 2012 at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California. This fight was voted Fight of the Year in 2012. Both of these fighters had impressive records coming into this fight. Brandon Rios would win by TKO stoppage in the 7th round. They would later rematch in 2013, where Alvarado won by unanimous decision. Both of these fighters have mutual respect for each other, since they're the ones who have taken their oaths from each other. A possible third fight could still likely happen, hopefully 2014. Next fight I'd like to talk about is the fight that recently happened not that long ago between Canelo Alvarez and Austin Trout. This fight took place on April 20th, 2013 in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. It was a unification bout to unify the WBA junior middleweight title and the WBC junior middleweight title. Austin Trout would get knocked down for the first time in his career in the 7th round. Austin Trout was a no-name fighter until he had recently before beat Miguel Cotto in Madison Square Garden in October of the previous year. Canelo Alvarez won that fight by unanimous decision, where many people think Austin Trout had won the fight.